Following a brief but understandable hiatus during 2020, E3 has returned this year, albeit in an all-digital form. Although Sony have decided once again to skip the conference in favour of presumably their own thing further down the line, that doesn't mean that there hasn't been a number of exciting projects announced for PlayStation systems during the course of this year's E3. I watched every single E3 conference, and I mean every single one, to bring you this, my list of the 15 most exciting PlayStation announcements from this year's E3 and Summer Games Fest. I guess the two are separate but occur at the same time. It's been really confusing this year. Although it was wonderful to see E3 return once again, it's fair to say that the conference felt muted in comparison to previous years. Considering that the pandemic is still very much in full effect across the globe and presumably developers are only now becoming acclimatized to working from home, huge announcements were understandably thin on the ground. The focus instead was on live service titles, projects that no doubt began development way before the pandemic hit, games that have only just entered development, and smaller titles by indie developers who are no doubt more used to working remotely. To have expected more bombast or bigger announcements from this year's show would have been setting yourself up for disappointment. The mere fact that anything has been created, the mere fact that anything is being released this year is an absolute miracle. To see such a wonderfully diverse range of titles coming in 2021 was, for me anyway, the highlight of this year's E3. Hopefully, Sony will schedule something themselves very, very soon. They were notably absent from this year's E3. Normally they do something adjacent, but I guess this year they have something else planned. I assume they'll wait a few weeks before they announce something. They'll let the buzz of E3 die down a little bit. They'll want to control the headlines, understandably. Make sure you keep an eye on this channel. We'll have all the news as it happens, as always. Either way, it was nice to have E3 back, even if 90% of the conferences felt like Zoom calls we weren't supposed to see. Anyway, that's probably enough waffling. Let's talk about the games. Alright, let's get started with probably the biggest reveal of the whole weekend, and certainly the most requested. From Software finally showcased the first gameplay footage for their upcoming open world Souls game, Elden Ring. I think it's fair to say that the wait has been worth it, because Elden Ring looks incredible. Combat appears to blend together the speed and brutality of Sekiro with the measured precision of Dark Souls 3. You can even battle enemies while riding on horseback, which I'm sure will do nothing but add further depth to what is already one of gaming's greatest and indeed ever evolving combat systems. Its open world bears a lot of similarities with previous Souls games. From Software have a very distinct aesthetic after all, but the interconnected environments look absolutely stunning. At the centre of this world lies a colossal tree, seemingly made out of light, surrounded by dilapidated castles, mist-covered forests, and vast stretches of dusty wasteland. There's a big turtle creature with a bell stuck to it, vases with arms, a massive messed up lord with loads of horrible arms that he'll no doubt use to kill you repeatedly with. According to the game's website, players can fight using a variety of weapons, magic spells, and other skills. They can approach situations using stealth or call in help from friends via the game's online functionality. Co-written by Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin, Elden Ring is shaping up to be yet another mega hit when it launches on both the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 4 from the 21st of January 2022. Not long to wait now. Norman Reedus and the Funky Fetus is receiving a PlayStation 5 Director's Cut at some point in the near future. Kojima himself rocked up to Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest kickoff event to chat a little bit about how the pandemic has affected his creative process before announcing the game via a trailer that parodied his previous series, Metal Gear Solid. It was, to be fair, quite a delightful wink at the camera sort of way of revealing the presumably expanded edition, even if it told us us absolutely nothing about the game itself. Still, it was in many ways the most Hideo Kojima way of announcing something, and you know, there was something vaguely nostalgic about seeing a cardboard box turned upside down again. What I would give for a new Metal Gear Solid. But anyway, let's move on. Although we didn't see any gameplay, an all too common occurrence at this year's E3, Gearbox revealed Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, a Borderlands spin-off set within a high fantasy world. A successor of sorts to the brilliant Assault on Dragon Keep DLC that launched for Borderlands 2 all the way back in 2013, Wonderlands will allow players to shoot guns, swing swords, and cast spells against a variety of classic fantasy enemies such as dragons and goblins. Featuring an all-star voice cast that includes the likes of Andy Samberg, Wanda Sykes, Will Arnett, and of course Ashley Birch, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands will no doubt delight long-term fans of the franchise when it launches for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 early next year. I'm quite excited for this one. A dumb fantasy looter shooter sounds like it could be a bit of a winner, but don't tell anyone because I have a street persona I'm really trying to maintain. Yeah, I only like first-person shooters from the 90s. Yeah. Moving on. Yes, it leaked a few days before its official announcement, because of course it did. This is E3 after all. But that doesn't lessen our excitement for 2 Point Campus. The next game by 2 Point Hospital developer 2 Point Studios, I'm sensing a naming theme here. 2 Point Campus allows players to manage their own universities, building lecture halls and dormitories for their wacky student population. Classes are suitably offbeat, including lectures about jousting and how to make massive pizzas. We adored 2 Point Hospital, and we can't wait to give this a try when it arrives next year. No longer called Quarantine for reasons so obvious it almost feels silly to even mention that they've changed the name in the first place, Rainbow Six Extraction received its first gameplay demonstration during Ubisoft's conference. The game is a 3-player co-op shooter that features characters and abilities lifted from Rainbow Six Siege. Together, players must shoot their way through hordes of vicious aliens to complete objectives, with each level split up into multiple different sections. Wait, this is just Left 4 Dead, isn't it? Yeah, it's just a more tactical version of Left 4 Dead, but with hero characters. I love this. Left 4 Dead was one of my favourite games, and alongside Back 4 Blood, we're starting to see a resurgence of this classic co-op genre that never really made its way over to PlayStation during the height of its popularity. Sign me up for blasting alien baddies when Extraction launches for the PS5 and the PS4 on the 16th of September. Here at Push Square, we're quite fond of Steep, Ubisoft's open-world winter sports title that launched for PlayStation 4 back in 2016. Developed by the same team responsible for Steep, Riders Republic looks to expand upon that initial concept in new and exciting ways, providing players with a huge open world that mashes together multiple US national parks into one weird affront to Mother Nature herself. Players can compete in various sports including mountain biking, skiing, snowboarding, and windsuit races. The emphasis here, like in Steep, is on social play. Players can hang out in shared social spaces before competing in high-octane competitive playlists. The game launches on the 2nd of September for both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. The PlayStation 5 version will run at 4K 60 frames per second and will feature more players on screen at once compared to its last-gen version. Personally, I am so excited for this one. It looks like an incredibly fun and very chill time, kind of my level at the moment. Far Cry 6 had a relatively modest presence at E3, despite it being one of the bigger releases of the year. A fairly exciting gameplay trailer was shown off during the Xbox conference. Boo, hiss, we're a PlayStation channel, why am I mentioning Xbox? However, potentially the most interesting reveal came during Ubisoft's conference a day prior. You see, as part of the game's Season Pass, it was revealed that players will be able to assume the roles of franchise villains Vars, Pagan Min, and Joseph Seed as I don't really know what you're doing here. Walking through hallucinations, I guess that's part of Far Cry, right? The best reveal, however, is that Far Cry 3 protagonist Jason Brody is finally represented for what he truly is. The real villain of Far Cry 3. Jason Brody, I hate that guy. Worst character ever. Oh, also, if you buy the Season Pass, you can play a remastered version of Far Cry Blood Dragon, which is really nice. That game rules. Far Cry 6 comes out on the 7th of October for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Trek to Yomi is a side-scrolling action game inspired heavily by classic samurai cinema. Much like last year's excellent Ghost of Tsushima, Trek to Yomi features combat that is as graceful as it is brutal. Players can wield a variety of 19th century Japanese weaponry, including bows and shurikens. Shurikens, is that how you say that? All while immersing themselves in a period-accurate depiction of the country as it was during the Edo dynasty. Like I say, it's also heavily inspired by classic samurai cinema, so expect strong winds, dramatic poses silhouetted against striking black and white backgrounds, and plenty of spilled blood when Trek to Yomi comes to PlayStation 5 next year. Shadow Warrior 3 is Samurai Doom, so I don't think I need to say anything else about it really, other than you can pull weapons out of enemies and then use them against their pals. It looks absolutely incredible, and it's out later this year for PlayStation 4. I mean, come on, have you seen this? God, this looks so good. Among the slew of virtual reality announcements and gameplay reveals included as part of the Upload VR conference, the highlight was arguably the show's very first reveal, PlayStation VR exclusive FRACKED. Opening with the protagonist skiing down a hill while being pursued by nimble assassins, and culminating in a perilous climbing sequence that was ripped straight out of Uncharted 2, the FRACKED gameplay demo looked exactly like the type of VR experience the aging headset has been lacking for a few years now. The stylized Borderlands-esque visuals helped sell what was easily the most exhilarating demonstration of that entire conference. We can't wait to try FRACKED out for ourselves when the game launches this summer. That's really soon. Okay, I'm very excited about this one. Hades, easily one of 2020's best games, finally makes its way to both the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 on the 13th of August. Viewer, let me tell you, let me be honest and real with you for a second. I am so excited that Hades is coming to PlayStation. It's one of my all-time favourite games. Developed by Bastion creators Supergiant Games and released last year for PC and Switch following a period in early access, Hades took the gaming world by storm, delivering one of the most refined takes on the roguelike genre seen to date. Playing as Zagreus, the son of Hades, as he attempts to escape from his home in hell, players must defeat enemies in a series of randomly generated rooms, unlocking new weapons and equipping godlike abilities as they progress. You will die. This is a roguelike after all, but what makes Hades so special is how dying is a core aspect of the game's narrative. With each death comes fresh dialogue with the game's brilliant cast of characters, new permanent buffs to unlock, and additional story beats to keep you engaged. With every run you get a little faster, a little more powerful, and a whole lot more determined to reach Mount Olympus where you believe you truly belong. Hades is great. Please play Hades. I don't know if you're picking up on how excited I am that Hades is coming to PlayStation. The game will run at 60 frames per second at 4K on PlayStation 5, it's gonna look gorgeous, or at 60 frames per second at 1080p on PlayStation 4. What is Atomic Heart? Good question, because I don't really know, but that hasn't stopped it from becoming one of the games I'm most excited to play when it finally launches for both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Eventually, it still doesn't have a release date, but Atomic Heart has perhaps the most striking environmental design seen in a video game since the original BioShock. Set within a retro-futuristic Soviet facility where corrupted robots have rebelled against their human overlords, you play as Major, attempting to prevent the hostile machines from destroying the world. It's kind of hard to describe Atomic Heart in a way that does its visual design justice. Its robots, chunky and vintage in their design, may be the stars of the show, but Atomic Heart seems to feature so much more. Weird cables, locations located in the player's hand allow them to interact with various objects. You can craft melee weapons. You can use psychic powers in combat. Towering Soviet monuments are paired with surrealist sci-fi facility design. It looks fantastic. Hopefully we find out more soon, but for now it's worth just basking in this 60-second trailer that honestly may be my favourite from the entire show. I can't stop thinking about this game. I need it right now. Rumoured for a while, but finally revealed as part of the relatively flat Squeenix presentation, Guardians of the Galaxy is the latest project by Deus Ex developers Eidos Montreal. I'll be honest, my first impressions of this game weren't good. Its reveal was 20 minutes long, a little too drawn out for an initial reveal at a conference, I felt, with its momentum dipping at multiple points during its presentation. Also, after Crystal Dynamics' disappointing Avengers game that launched last year, there were too many similarities between the Uncanny Valley character models that left me feeling a little standoffish at first. But I've been to bed since that reveal, and after rewatching a little bit of gameplay, I think I'm back on board. For starters, Guardians is a completely single-player experience. There's no live service nonsense, no forced co-op, no microtransactions. Guardians is, in a lot of ways, the game Avengers should have always been. And to Eidos Montreal's credit, I really think they've nailed the brief here. Taking influence from the comics, Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, Rocket and Groot have great chemistry with one another. They argue constantly, making little snide remarks as you work your way through a level. Thanks to a Mass Effect style dialogue system, you have an opportunity to drastically alter Peter Quill's relationship with his reluctant crewmates. They'll even remember your decisions, Telltale style. Combat bears a lot in common with Final Fantasy VII Remake. You play as Quill, but you can give commands to your crewmates with time slowing down slightly to allow you to make decisions on the fly. Combat looks a little weightless, but again, it still seems like a far better system than the one seen in Avengers, and you never really know how a game feels to play until it's in your hands. All in all, I'm cautiously optimistic about Guardians of the Galaxy. Eidos Montreal are a stellar team, and this could be a huge hit if they manage to pull it off successfully. We'll find out sooner rather than later when the game launches for both the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 on the 26th of October. Alright, how do I describe this one? Alright, so you know Nioh, right? That Souls-like game by Team Ninja, the developers of the Ninja Gaiden games. Well, they're making a Final Fantasy game that looks like it has some Nioh-like combat elements. Belt Dad Tetsuya Nomura is involved in the game's concept and character design, we'll come back to that. It's an origin story about the original Final Fantasy. All I can really say about this game, based on the limited information we currently have available, is that Stranger in Paradise feels like an early PlayStation 3 game that just fell through a time portal and into the modern era. The name feels old, the character models are just... Is that just a normal t-shirt? They say chaos no less than 8 times in this trailer. I guess you're killing chaos. I unironically love it. We just don't get games like this anymore. A free demo was released for the PlayStation 5 during the conference and it didn't work. You couldn't play the demo. It was just... mwah. Basically, they're off to a really good start with this one, and it's ironic that the only chaos Jack Final Fantasy can't defeat is the chaos of his own game reveal. Alright, let's wrap this video up with 3 indie games coming to PlayStation soon that really caught my eye, not including Hades. I love Hades too much, I'm sorry that had to be its own section of the video. Severed Steel is an incredibly stylish and fast-paced first-person shooter where you play as the very nimble Steel, a one-armed gunslinger. Due to one of her arms being a literal cannon, Steel is unable to reload and must scavenge her next weapon from the corpse corpses of her enemies. Therefore, it's up to the player to run, jump, slide, flip, and kick. God, I love it when first-person shooters let me kick your way through a level, grabbing weapons as you go. This looks bonkers, out on PlayStation 4 soon, hopefully. Give me Harold Halibut. Please, I beg of you, this point-and-click adventure has been entirely handmade. Every set, every character, every single frame of this game exists in the real world. It looks so weird and heartfelt and unique. I can't wait for this to come out, hopefully this year. Dodgeball Academia is an action sports RPG coming to the PlayStation 4 this year. The game lets you play dodgeball and recruit team members, as well as explore a world that's obsessed with the fine art of dodgeball. It looks gorgeous and reminds me quite a lot of those old handheld Mario sports games that featured an RPG campaign mode. Basically, I just can't wait to see more. Hello, welcome to the end of the video. I am fascinated to hear all of your thoughts about this year's E3, so sound off in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider giving it a like and make sure to subscribe to Push Square for everything PlayStation. I've been Liam. I don't normally say my name in the end, but thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.